We are at 2 after. No time like the present to get started. I know everybody's got other things to do. Let's go ahead and get started with the sync. Do we have Eric here with backend?
Yep, indeed. Hello, everyone. So yeah, on backend last week, we released Synapse 1.97 RC1. The main thing here is it now supports asynchronous uploads, which is a new MSC. Thanks to Sumner Evans at Beeper for getting that across the line. It's taken a while, but we're finally there, and that's really, really super exciting. Otherwise, just various small bits of performance fixes, just mainly for matrix.org, to be honest. But let us know if it helps other people. We've also done a couple of releases for Signal and Silent, just some small bug fixes there that have been hanging around and that we wanted to release. And yeah, that's basically us.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. Hello, Florian. Let's go on to account portability and dendrites. Who's on deck?
Hello, it's me, it's Keegan.
Thank you, Keegan.
So last week, I've been working on Complement Crypto, which is a series of complement tests which are extended to support testing end-to-end encryption. And out of that came an MSC 4081, which is trying to improve the reliability of end-to-end encryption when federation is not reliable. Meanwhile, there's been some work on crypto IDs, which is MSC 4080. So there's been some work around tests for that, as well as flushing out some of the endpoints and some silencing bug fixes as well. This week, basically more of the same. So there's some more complement crypto work going on and some testing and development of crypto IDs over federation. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Keegan. Looks like we're not quite ready for spec. Let's move on to VoIP with Florian.
Yeah, thanks. We had quite some momentum last week. So we fixed the jumpy speaker tiles in Spotlight mode. This needs a new release, but on develop it's merged and it's way more smooth to follow a screen share. We added an MSC for specific ring and notifications of a Matrix RTC session, which is already merged to develop and desktop nightly, so the messenger applications. And we finally added support for element call and DMs, which is pretty cool. Obviously, everything on develop and desktop nightly. We also uncovered a security issue on element call, which is also fixed on develop, and we now need really to cut a release as soon as possible, hopefully by tomorrow. And then this other thing we uncovered is that when you create a new room in Element Web, Desktop, or Element X, the necessary power levels for element call are missing. This is also something we need to tackle as soon as possible. Yep. Other than that, quite a nice week. Last week. This week just started.
Excellent. Thank you, Florian. Next up, let's go to Johnny on Rich Text Editor.
Hello. So this week, we've been able to move away from our custom fork of Unify now that this the issue that affected it, that prevented us from using it, is fixed. On iOS, we fixed a shortcut, the shortcut where you double space to create a full stop. And on Android, fixed a crash when you type emojis in the middle of a word. And coming up, we probably will have a few more fixes and changes needed for mentions on Android. And that's it.
Thank you, Johnny. Let's move on to Element Web and Desktop. Is this Florian again?
Another Florian.
Thank you.
So last week we worked on about unread and stuck notification. So our changes are under code review. We are seeing improvements in it, so better experience on it. And also we have made some UX improvement on around self-notification to reduce our pain. We also worked on the new room header. We have worked about AODC, some testing about it. And another part about testing, we are testing our exploration of replacing Cypress with Playwright for testing end-to-end. The tests are running faster, and we also be able to enable screenshot of visual tests. We are using Percy before, and now it's written in Playwright. And also we have upgraded Webpack from 4 to 5 version. And that's all.
Thank you, Florian. Next up, Element iOS. Not sure we have anything on deck for this. We
We'll use an
will-
Element iOS legacy.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Element Android with Benoit.
Yes, good morning. So maybe on iOS there will be a release tomorrow for the legacy app, because we will release the Android app tomorrow and we release at the same date. So for Element Android there will be a release tomorrow, and it's worth noting that a bug has been fixed. It was when you had an incoming call and the user is answering on another device. On some conditions, the ringing call was infinite, so it's been fixed. And regarding ElementX, it's a bit like last week. We are writing more tests, and we are reaching 66% of code coverage, so a few more percent. It will decrease a bit because the compound library, or the compound module, has been externalized to a dedicated library, and this module was quite well covered, more than 95%. So mathematically, it decreases a bit the coverage now on ElementX, but we are still adding tests, so yeah, it will progress again.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for the rest, we are working on mentions, in particular on the REST side, and also George is currently working on the rendering of the timeline events. And the idea is to share the code between the rich text editor, which is rendering events as well in the composer, and in the timeline, so that we have the same rendering and the same code is used. Yeah, we also have started to work on the poll history screen. So the screen we already have on the current applications. I think that's pretty all for ElementX Android and Android in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoit. Next up, we have Element X iOS with Mauro.
Yeah, so on ElementX iOS, first of all, we finally released the read receipts. They are finally completed and out, so you can finally use them on without need to enable them in the nightly. Also with some fixes and improvements for the lock screen, and we actually also able to support Xcode 15 on DCI. So we're now using fully Xcode 15 to work with ElementX iOS. Then we did some UI improvements in general for the timeline and the composer, like we removed the underline from links. The resizing behavior has been improved, and when you send a message, we automatically scroll to the bottom of the timeline. Then there were several backup improvements and tweaks for the secure backup, and then some notification performance improvements alongside a change for the copy that was included when you were mentioned in the notification, since it was quite verbose. Then some more various bug fixes and improvements, and we also started working on implementing the poll history that was also present in the legacy version of the app. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mauro. Moving on to QA with Kat.
Hi. So test coverage is continuing to climb on both ElementX apps, which is great. From the QA side, we're continuing to do a lot of testing on ElementX, as quite a lot of the stories and epics are now ready for sign-off. So that was our focus last week, and we will continue with that this week.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kat. Next up, Matrix Rust SDK with Benji.
Hello, everyone. So last week, we landed in the mainline branch, the automated backup PR. So huge kudos to Damir for doing that. It was like a huge chunk of work. We also had some improvements and better edge case handling for the crypto endpoints response handling logic. So in particular, keys claim. We also did lots of refactorings and cleanups for the bindings that we're using in the applications, so that the APIs are more aligned between the bindings and what the Rust crates themselves provide. And we also had a nice 5% performance improvement when encrypting and sharing room keys with others, which is pretty nice and benefiting all the apps at once. And this week we'll work on merging the automated recovery, the manual recovery PR that works in line with the backup PR for the crypto keys. And that's it for the Rust SDK.
Thank you, Benji. Next up, we have encryption. Who's on deck for this?
Hello, it's Valère. Oh yeah, so several points already covered, but yeah, we've been working on WebARM message sending performance. So this includes several changes in the way we we try or wait a bit for key claims, changes on the improvement on the database, lots of logging improvement also, and more to come. So I've been working on the problem that importing room key was freezing the app. We are also adding support for verification events on the Rust SDK. So given that we have less API, we're going to simplify also how it works on legacy. We're also working on improving the incremental download of keys. And the work on Rust SDK already explains work on authenticated key backup, and the backup PR got merged. And other than that, we're investigating issues and things like that. That's it for crypto.
Thank you, Valère. Bridges. Looks like we have something here from Bridges, but I don't see how. Andrew, are you repping again today? Okay, thank you, Andrew. Moving on to identity and authentication. Quentin.
I could see Andrew's lips move, but couldn't hear him. So I'm not sure if everyone is hearing me right.
Right, the same.
Okay.
I can. To me also couldn't hear anything.
Okay, so we might have a split brain on something. Anyway, so last week we released Matrix Authentication Service version 0.6.0 and also the 0.1 patch release because we fixed some bug in the that we found right after. Basically, this includes a lot of improvements around upstream IDPs, making a lot of options that were available in Synapse also available in MAS. Another thing I want to highlight is that we worked a lot on documentation, so there's now a quite extensive page about configuring a lot of popular IDPs with the auth service, so I invite you to check it out. Other than that, we're working on restoring the ability of being able to reset your cross-signing keys with mass. So that was one of the notable caveats with when you had an ORDC native setup for now. The UI will still see a lot of iterations on it, but at least now the feature is somewhat restored. So coming up this week, apart from continue working on that, I'll probably catch up on a lot of like the small bugs and small migration / administrator quality of life improvements in mass. So no big features highlight this week. That's about it.
Thank you very much. And I see we have Tib's written update here, but due to gremlins screaming in the background, he'll be staying muted, as I understand. Thank you, Tib. So wrapping us up, last week was a very brief week for me. It was just in for about 2.5 days, given the holidays, some training on incoming regulations. Huge thanks to Denise and the team there. Some community engagement on the finance side of things, long-running threads about people with people who want to know more about the foundation's finances, which I am always glad to answer questions along those lines. Last week also, we began to review the proposed revisions to the governing board terms of reference. It's a document that governs the governing board. So looking at making that, what we can do to make that even more an even better vehicle for community representation. And then we got a random sponsorship inquiry last week. So that was it's always a nice surprise. This week, I have a couple of prospective member meetings and to get to send out some invoices, participating in my first spec core team retro. Very excited for that. We've got prep underway for FOSDEM and Chaos Communications Club, I think is what those C's stand for. So I'll be coordinating with the folks who will be representing us there. I see Jan shaking his head. I got it wrong. I'm sorry. I'll get it right next time.
It's the Congress, Chaos Communication Congress.
Congress. Thank you, Jan. Okay. We've got a proposal from a developer experience and community manager, developer experience expert and community manager to do research into the contributor experience around the spec. So very excited to review that proposal and go over that with all the relevant stakeholders. Meeting with Open Forum Europe's leadership later this week. So folks may remember one of the things that I'm working on is getting the foundation connected and in partnership with other relevant open source foundations. So that's what that's about. Roadmap with Tib. Thank you, Tib. And then publishing an update on Libra chat because that's been lagging. So I just need to wrap that up. Lastly, points of interest. Huge thanks to everybody in the community for holding it down while I was out last week. I am full of food and still recovering from that wonderful problem. But also a shout out to the Element SRE team who looks after the matrix.org home server. Last week they did some maintenance and the downtime, I think it was measured in single-digit minutes, which is a real positive signal about how far we've come in terms of how that home server is run. So thank you and congratulations on that. And that's all I've got. So happy Monday, fabulous people. We'll see you next time.